Okay, so I think we can get going. So welcome to today's webinar. We're going to talk a little bit about Creo improvements and or efficiency improvements and MapKeys. So I've just prepared a few slides for us to sort of kick everything off, and then from there we'll go into Creo and I'll demonstrate some of the functionality. So I think most of you guys received the objective of the webinar. Some of the topics that we'll cover today is the user interface. We're going to talk about MapKeys. We're going to add or create the UDF and place a UDF, a user-defined feature. Then I'm going to show you how my library is set up using Creo. We're going to talk a little bit about the IFX, Intelligent Fastener extension that's coming with Creo now. Then we're going to talk about flexible components and component interfaces. Okay, so just a few slides about myself and Boundary System. So my name is Pierre Venter. I'm a Boundary Systems technical specialist. I've been working with PTC products since 2008. So my specialties are the Creo manufacturing stuff, smart assembly for Creo, and then top-down design. A few slides about product one. So you can see we are part of the PDSVISION group of companies. So we've got offices in Europe and in the States as well, and we've got an office in South Africa as well. So some of our capabilities, we help customers with product lifecycle management, data management, CAD design and consulting, simulation, and product development. But some of our major accreditations, I think the PTC ones are the important ones. So we are a PTC Platinum partner. We're also Windchill certified implementers. We're also a PTC preferred service provider, and then authorized or a certified training partner for Creo, Windchill, MathCAD, and Arbitex. So some of the solutions, again, the PTC stuff are the main focus area, but then we do things like Moldex, Etrage, Keyshot, ZWCAD, and Simaxim, just to name a few of the other products we can help you guys with as well. Okay, so let's jump into the things that we need to discuss today in this webinar. So I've started off with the user interface. So the aim is to make your life a little bit easier, and not everybody is the same. So we sort of give you tools to manipulate the interface a little bit to make it easier for yourself. One of the important things I always tell the CAD administrators here is leave the guys or the designers, the actual users, to chop and change the user interface to suit them. Not everybody is going to go about the business the same way. Make their life easy, allow them to change certain things. So I know some of the CAD administrators will copy config files and user interface files and all of those things over each time the guys start up Creo, which means every time that you guys start up Creo, you're going to have the same config files, the same things. So there are tools in the background for CAD administrators, something like the config.sub that we can use, and that will sort of split the scenario a little bit, where CAD administrators can get what they want and users can get what they need to design or to develop their products. So one of those things that I find is quite important is the global system colors. So some of the older users that's been using Pro Engineer and maybe the beginning of Creo, the color schemes change quite often. And I'm going to show you guys today how to change that and how to make it easier for you. Important bit is there to use the defaults, and then from there, chop and change it. Even if you go from one version to another version, use the defaults, and then you can change some of the line edges or things like that. Don't copy and paste the system colors file all the time. You're going to run into issues when you get into drawings and things like that, because PTC chop and change them quite often. One of the other things that you can do is you can add tabs and groups to the ribbon. So once again, you can add your own tab. You can see in the screenshot here, I have a custom tab, and I've just added the 3D print thing in there and active. So that's tools that you can use, and you can build your own ribbon at the top. So what I would do is I would take all the commands I use the most, add them to a tab, and then I just work in that one tab, and the few times I need to go out of that, then I can go and find tools or things that I need to use. So you can customize that, and it's quite easy. One of the new features that's available in Creo 8 now is that you can change your flyouts. So for instance, this whole shape, you can see normally it would be here at the top. So here I'm showing my placement, I'm showing the shape, and I'm showing my notes. So in Creo 8, you can move these flyouts around. So each of these tabs can sort of move from there, and it will remember where it was each time you use that tool. So I'll show you how to do that with a simple hold feature, but it's the same for all the features in Creo 8 now. So just a nice way to manipulate the interface a little bit when you use certain features. One of the other hot topics is MapKeys. So I use them quite often. It can make your life a lot easier. So MapKeys is also one of those things that's saved within the config.profile. So once again, system administrators, if a guy creates a config.profile and you copy a config.pro each time they start up Creo or for whatever reason, then those guys are going to lose those MapKeys, which is going to affect the productivity of them as well. So again, let them use the config.pro, let them create these shortcuts and save them in the config.profile. So there's a few ways that you can handle these MapKeys. So each time Creo is going to prompt you for certain things, and then you have 3 options in there. So you can either record the keyboard input, accept system default, or pause and wait for the user or for the guy to give the input and then carry on with the map key. So I'll do a simple example today, but just keep in mind these map keys, they're really powerful. You can link them to an icon, and you can put them in that same ribbon or that same tab at the top. Okay. So you can really go crazy with them if you want to. Then jumping into the features that's quite hot that I picked. One of them is user-defined features. So this is just a selection of features, and you group them together, and then you can reuse them in other components, in other assemblies. So 9 out of 10 times I will use a standalone UDF. So that means it's copying all the information into that UDF file, and then you can use that wherever you want. If it's not the standalone option, then it means it needs the original model. And you can imagine working with Windchill and references and things like that. That can be cumbersome. So try to use the standalone as far as you can. It will take up a little bit more space, but I mean, when in this day and age, space is not really that big an issue anymore. These files are like maybe 1 or 2 megs at the most. So it's not big. Okay. So I'm going to show an example of those as well. Then the Creo library. So again, I think if you think about Pro Engineer days, Wildfire 2, 3, 4 maybe, the Creo library was most of the time nuts and bolts and things like that. That's not the case anymore. The library functionality is more about custom parts nowadays. We've got IFX, which is this interface on the right-hand side, where you can place nuts and bolts and dowels and things like that. So there's a lot of information there. It's a much cleaner interface and a lot easier to use. So you can see in my custom parts library, I still have ISO fasteners and metric library and mold libraries and things like that. There's my fasteners for SA as well. So that doesn't need to be there anymore. Things like bearings, connectors, manufacturing library, things like that makes sense to put in your library now. And all these files can be either in Windchill or it can be on a network drive, you just have to set your config setting to the right drive, and you and your library can get going. I just received a message that I'm on mute. I'm certainly not on mute. Can anybody give me an indication that they can hear me or not? Melissa, if you're still there, just give me some sort of indication. Okay, good. Loud and clear. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to carry on. Okay, so yeah, that's the Creo library. Then the next thing that I've also handpicked is flexible components. Really, really powerful, really nice to use. So this is where you have scenarios like springs or clips, rubber washers, things like that. That's the same, but they change as soon as you put them in the assembly. Okay, so this spring that we have here is the same part number. It's exactly the same thing. We just added flexibility to it. And you can do that with dimensions, parameters, surface finishes, and features as well. So you can remove holes and things like that if you need to. Okay, so really nice to use. I'm going to show you how to use that. And then just a reminder, in the model tree, you'll see some funny icons popping up there. So that's how you would identify these flexible components. So you can know it's the same component, it's just in a different state. Okay. Then the last one before we go into Creo is component interfaces. So these are for the guys that's assembling a lot of components in one go. So take those components. Normally you would add these to your library components, but if you're starting to see you assembling a certain component all the time, and you have to go through those 3 or 4 clicks to assemble it, add a component interface to that, and then you just have to select the references on the assembly to place that component. So I'm going to show you how to build that as well. A really nice and easy tool to use in Assemblies. Okay, so just before we go into Creo, so we do some training. So with all the COVID stuff that's going around, we're doing virtual training. We can do in-center training as well. So that means you come into one of our training centers, and then we can do on-site as training as well. So keep an eye on our website for the full schedule. And if you need any training, let us know, and we can help you guys with that. And then I'm just going to put my details up quickly. So guys that need to run or something like that, quickly take a snapshot of that. If you can't ask questions today or so, just get those questions to me later on, and then I can answer them. We can log a ticket or get the support team to help you guys as well. Okay, so I just want to see, there's still guys that are complaining about sound. I can't see all the questions yet. Okay, so it seems like there's 1 or 2 guys that can't hear me, and the rest are all fine. Okay, so let's go into Creo. And then I'm going to use this assembly, and I'm just quickly going to go through the global settings and things like that, things like colors and so on that you can change. So you're going to go to File, Options, and then Options again. To notice there's an extra click in Creo 8 to get into the options, and then all your system appearances is going to be in this tab over here. So with each Creo release, there will be certain default ones like white on black, black and white, the dark theme. So I know that's quite a popular one. I'm just going to pop in and out a few times, and you can see how Creo will change that. But the one that I wanted to show you, and the reason why I'm going this extra steps, is if you're working a lot with imported features, step files and things like that, and you have to clean that up. There's a specific old wildfire system color that's really helpful. I'm going to show you how that pops up certain colors. So it's a pre-wildfire color scheme. I'm going to say OK. And you can see the datum planes and things like that. If we show, I don't have datum points in here. Let me jump to one of the other parts. It's a spring part. So you can see the points and things like that, how they jump out. So with the Creo 3 or with the Creo 8 default one, it's not getting to you that quickly. So it's really a nice one to use. So these are ones of the files that's not available on ptc.com anymore. So if you want that file, just drop me a mail. I'll send it to you, and then you can use it. Okay. If we go quickly back to the system colors. So I'm on custom now, but you can see I can still go and I can change all of these colors. So I found that a lot of guys will start fiddling around with these ones, and then as soon as they go into manufacturing, where they need to see tool paths, or they go into mold design and things like that, then certain things isn't clear anymore. It's sort of overlaid. So what I tell the guys always, use one of the default ones. So I'm going to go back to default, and then only make subtle changes to these ones. Don't change it completely. Don't change a blue to a yellow or something like that. Just change it a little bit. It's going to be easier for you to identify things, and you won't miss things. Right? Especially if you're going from like a Creo 2 to a Creo 8 or something like that. Just be wary of that. And then obviously you can change all the rest, the points and the how do you want to view geometry and things like that. I mean, there's options for each and every one. So if you have a good one and it's been working for you for a few versions, use that. I'm just saying, just check if you start missing things, and it all depends on what features you use within Creo. Okay, then if we go into the next one, the ribbon. So in here, you can also change, you can add ribbons and things like that. So you can see it's in the current mode, which is assembly mode. So you can change that. Should it be for all modes or just certain ones? Just the main tabs, tool tabs, common tabs. So you can select that, and all you need to do basically is create new. You say create a new tab. It's going to create a new tab, so there it's already in there. So obviously you need to rename it to something that makes sense. So I'm just going to call it Beers tab or something like that. Say OK. And once you're in there, you can say, well, I want to create a new group. And you can create as many groups as you like. I'm just going to rename that as well, just to see it's changing here at the top. And let's call it group 1. Okay, so you can see the name change immediately. So you're getting that feedback all the time from Creo. And what you need to do from there is just add the commands that you want. So you can filter commands, you can look for the extrude. There's the extrude. You just simply take that, drag it over, and you're going to see there's the extrude. So if I use the extrude a lot, I'll do that. Maybe I'll add extrude, revolves, and holes. Maybe those are the three common ones that I use. If you use a lot of surfacing, then you can create the boundary blend, maybe the sweep feature, and if you're using ISDX, you can add that in there as well. That's the surfacing module in Creo. One other thing that you can add in here is MapKeys that I wanted to show you as well. So if you go over here and you select MapKeys, I should just remove my filter, otherwise that's not gonna open that up. So I have an open assembly, but I'm not gonna put that there. I want that to be in my quick access toolbar. So I'm just quickly gonna go quick access toolbar, and notice here at the top how Creo is gonna add that in there. I'm just gonna say open assembly. So you can see there's my little open assembly icon, and that's just the map key that I've created. So if we go to our map keys, you can see there's an open assembly. Yeah. So what this particular map key will do is whatever my working directory is, or even if you go to your Winchell workspace, if you hit open, and this one will do is it will only show assemblies. So you can see my type is already assembly. Let me just go to my working directory. And let's go to this. There's a few assemblies in here. So you can see there's no parts or drawings or anything like that. So if I say all Creo files, you'll notice that there's a lot more in there. But because I've created this only open assembly map key, I can use that and make yourself a little bit more sufficient in opening and jumping between certain folders or certain files. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show on the tabs. I think if you can create one tab and you can add one group and you can add features in there, then it's all the same. You can take it overboard and do a lot of it, or you just can keep it simple, narrow down to maybe the 10 most commands you use, and then just use those. If I do this, I like to add the analysis tool as well there, the distance and the diameters and things like that. So I don't have to go to analysis, measure, whatever, those clicks. I'll just add them to a tab and I can use them as I work within Creo. Okay, let me just open up a component here. I'm going to work on this particular one. I just want to open up the ring part. And when I did the slides, I mentioned that you can move the flyouts when you create certain features. You can move them around. I'm going to show you the whole feature. So you can see my shape tab is over here. So I already moved that. So normally you would pick your references, whatever the case might be, drag them, or hold shift and or control and pick the whole. But then you never get the shape that's already there. So you either have to zoom in, or you have to click the shape tab, and then you're going to say, well, I'm going to do a drill the hole. I want to add countersink. I want to change the size maybe to an M. Make it just something a little bit bigger, something like that. Okay, and then if you want to change the placement, if you want to see the references, you have to jump between that, and then, okay, so I'm happy with that shape, and I want to see the note. So you see I've already pulled out my note. So what I've sort of did is I've put my note over here. I've taken my shape, just drag it, put my shape over here. Okay, so those are important things. And then I can do clearances and things like that if I want to add that, make it a tab hole, and I can see all the things all the time. Right. So really a nice feature within Creo 8 that's available now, and it's for all the features, extrude, sweeps, blends, all of those things. You can, as soon as it's in the ribbon, you can move it out and place it wherever it makes sense. And it's not going to be always in a certain place. It depends on your design. So you just move it around again. Creo is going to remember that. So move it to a spot that's making sense in your environment. Okay, so that's the features that I wanted to show. The clouds that you can can change. One of the other nice ones in Creo 8 now, so I found pretty cool, is the ability to make solid bodies transparent and quilts and tessellated bodies. So with Creo 8, we've got, and Creo 7, I think, a certain build of Creo 7, they've added this multi-body things you can do now. So you can have two solid components within one component, if that makes sense to all the users. I think the newer guys will grab that a lot quicker. But what I wanted to show you is, so if you take a component and you mark one of those bodies, you say, well, I want to add the transparency to it. Say make transparent, and that particular body now will be affected by this little tab here. You can see I've added the transparency to this one over here as well. And I found this nice if you're working with a lot of surfaces and things like that. So what the guys will do now is they will create layers, and layers is on or off. Or you need to assign a certain appearance to it, like a glass or a transparent appearance that you have to create, and add those to the components. This is a lot easier. It's a lot quicker. You don't have to get into the appearances. You don't have to add a lot of that. It's just more universal all around. Okay. So the only thing that you have to do is you just have to tell Creo, well, I should be able to use the transparency or not. So you can make it part of your start parts or things like that, and then use that. Yeah, really nice feature. Okay, so let's get into MapKeys. Let's create a MapKey. I'm going to use this assembly again. And let's say let's do one, or let's do two. I'm going to do one that's going to open up just components, just parts, so I don't see assemblies. So I just want to show you sort of what I did with the open assembly one. And then we can do one where we're going to create an extrude, for instance. If you're doing a certain flange shape a lot of the times, or certain shape, you can create a map key. I'm going to show you what's different there because you're going into a sketch, and then how you can handle that. So let's do an easy one first. Let's say we just want to open up parts or drawings. So I'm just going to go in my map keys. You're going to say new, and let's call it PRT, and we're going to call it open parts. So here's our prompt handling. How do we want Creo to handle default settings and things like that? Should it just record keyboard input or set defaults, or should it pause and ask me something? So for open drawing or open parts, it's quite easy. We don't need to do that. So I'm just going to say record, and we're going to go File, Open, and we're going to change this to parts only. You can see the assemblies are gone, and I want to stop it there. So that's where I want it to end. So I can say stop. I can say okay. Okay, so it says P is already used. So do you want to reassign the command keyboard shortcut to this map key, which means P was normal, just activate planes or show planes. I'm going to say, well, this is going to override that. So yes, please use mine. You can see it created the PRT. So as soon as you save this, it's going to save it to the config.pro. Okay, so you can see here at my message window, the map key is being saved. Okay, so let's change this back to Creo all files, and then I'm just going to say cancel there, and let's test it. PRT. So I just type PRT on my keyboard, and there it goes, and it's only opening PRT files in my working directory. Right. So if I browse to a different folder now, it's still set on parts. So if I go to this one, it's only going to show the parts. Okay. So you can do the same for drawings. You can do the same for manufacturing assemblies, which is also one that I use often, because as soon as you open up assemblies, you've got subtypes of assemblies. So design interchange assemblies, NC assemblies, CMM, sheet metal stuff, casting cavities. So there's a lot of subtypes in assemblies, and you can create MapKeys to open up all of those. So you don't have to go assembly subtype and look for the things. So use MapKeys to make your life a lot easier around that. That's just a simple example. You can do anything with MapKeys. It's going to take any recording or any mouse clicks or any input, and it's going to put it in a MapKey. So let's create one in a blank part. And I think for this example, we're just going to do a simple extrude, like a flange type thing. I'm going to show you what's going to be different. And so I'm going to say new. I'm going to say FL flange, and I'm just going to say record. Okay, so I'm going to start my extrude tool. I'm going to select where I want to do my sketch. I want to sketch on the front plane. And I'm going to activate the circle command. I'm going to grab the center. And I'm going to finish that. I can give it a value. I'm going to finish my, no, I want to add something to make it flange. I'm going to say minus, let's call it 25 inch. I'm going to say, well, that's fine. That's what I want. And I'm going to say, okay. I'm going to say, well, most of my flanges are about 25 millimeters thick. And I'm going to say, okay. Okay, so I've done that whole. So recording the keys, so I can say stop. And I can say, okay. Now my flange keys there's now, well, now if I hit save, it's going to save it to the config.profile that's currently in session, and I can reuse that wherever I am in Creo, obviously. Okay, so let's close that. And let's start a new component. And let's go back to the original one. Okay, and let's delete this. And let's run that map and see what happens. So pick the front plane. It's going into Sketcher, it activated the circle. Okay, so now we've used a reference when we did the original one. So that reference is going to change within your design environment, depending if you're in an assembly or you want to do a surface thing or something like that. Those references can change. So Creo doesn't always know where you are, but it's done all the clicks for you. So all you need to do is add the circle and then give it the offset you want. There you go. You want to change the values, I guess this is the spot to do it. It's going to make sense. So there's our flange. So we've input a circle and 2 dimensions. I didn't record the last one. I stopped that too early. So that's 3 values. It should have taken the thickness as well. Okay. So the point that you can use things like that to make your life easier to create things. You can do the same for holes, but I want to take the whole one and I want to move that to the UDF feature that I wanted to show. So let's go back to our assembly. Yeah, I'm going to open up this component. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to say user-defined features. I'm going to go to holes. And I'm just going to say, well, I'm going to add the whole one that I've added or created previously. You can see it's looking for a point. If you don't have a point, you will need to create that. So I'm just going to add something quickly like this. Okay, so it's going to use that point. Then it's asking me for a surface. And then in Creo 7 and 8 now with the multi-body designs, you need to specify which body you want it to use. And then this one failed. I think it's because my plate is too thin for this particular hole. Let's quickly make it thicker. So my point is still there. Okay, so let's use the user-defined feature, holes. And pick my body. There we go. So you see that thin plate couldn't add an M10 counter bore in there. And you can see there's my hole. Okay, so how did I create that? So if you go to tools, you see there's UDF library. So as soon as you pick that, there's a create option, and then you can create your UDF. I just want to leave that for now. I just want to create a feature first that you want to add to a UDF. So let's do the whole again. There's a few options in there. So I can say placement. So I'm going to leave this linear because I want to show you guys an extra step, and it's really important to use the right references when you create these UDFs. So I'm going to say, well, I'm going to place it on a surface. Then I'm going to create these extra references. And I'm going to say, well, this is going to be a standard hole. Let's make it something big like a 10 again. I'm going to add countable, and let's make it different. No, let's just do the countable. And we're going to make it that deep. That should be fine. Make it a little bit deeper. 3. Okay, so you can see our threads. I want to change something. That should be fine. Okay, so we've created a feature now. A hole. This can be an extrude. It can be a whole feature with a chamfer on top, whatever the case might be, or a round. It can be anything, and you can group them together in a user-defined feature. So let's go to tools. Just going to keep it simple for now. I'm going to call it webinar. Yeah, so do we want it standalone or subordinate? We want it standalone, please. Say yes over there, and then we're going to go select the features. So this is still the old menu manager. We can say hole 2. Say okay. Done. Done. So this is where the references is important now. So first of all, it's going to ask you for a body. Okay, so you need to pick the body where you want to add the hole to, because we can have multiple bodies in Creo now. and then it's going to look for the surface or a plane. So let's call this just surface. Let's make it call it start surface. And then it's going to ask for a plane again. Okay, so this is because I used a different reference. In the example that I showed earlier, I've used a point to place it. Now I've used the two datum planes. So now I have extra prompts. I have extra things to pick when I placed it. So let's go this, let's just call it plane 1. And now it's asking for the other plane. So let's call it plane 2. Okay, and then that's done. I can say done. Okay, and done. Okay, now to say a whole web has been created. Okay, and it's been stored. Okay, so let's delete all of this and let's try to place that whole again. So I'm again going to go to model. I'm going to say user defined feature. That should be my working directory. So there's the whole web that I've just created. Say okay. So look at all my prompts now. So now first I have to select the body, and then the surface, and then plane 1, and plane 2. And it's going to take those references of those distances. So it's making sense in this scenario. But if you move to another component, that hole is going to be in a different location, depending on the references that you've selected. So I just sort of wanted to show you the wrong way of doing it and the right way. The right way was the first one, where you have a datum point or datum max, and that's driving the position of your hole. So don't do this like I've done it here with the datum planes, because distance from the datum plane 2 and datum plane 1 is going to be fixed. And if you use this in another design, it's going to be either outside of the body, it's going to be in space or something like that. So try to use things that's robust, that you can pick, and you can identify the location immediately. Okay. Unless something like this is making sense in your design environment, then it's fine. Then you can do that. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show in user-defined features. If you have questions on those, get them in, or you can drop me a mail if you want to. I'm just going to cancel this placement. The last things that I wanted to show was the IFX stuff. So I'm going to go to this assembly again. That part changed now. I guess I can leave it the same. And let's just show datum axis here. So you will notice under tools, and when I work with my normal Creo environment, I take this intelligent fastener stuff and I move it into a different column. Or a different tab, because it's not making sense for me in tools. It's making more sense around my model, where I want to change things and add bits and pieces. So I move that around if I'm working with it quite a lot. So let's add a simple screw or bolt and nut if you wish. So it's going to ask you for a position. So I'm going to pick a data max. Now, where should the screw head be? I'm going to say, well, that needs to be from there. So it's determining the direction. And where should the nut or thread be? Should be up until here. And I can say, okay. So that's going to take me into the IFX interface. And you can see it sort of already picked one of my previous sizes. So I'm just going to make this smaller. I say, well, I'm going to do an M10. You can see the graphics window here is going to change. It's going to show you where the holes are. I can say, do I want to add washers? I can change the catalog to whatever I want it to be. So these are all standard ones. I haven't added anything in here. You can change the screw type. Let's see. There's quite a lot of them. Standard, comes with Creo now. So, no, sorry, I clicked wrong. No, I don't want to do that. Okay. And then what's also nice here, you can measure the diameter. So if you already have holes and things like that, IFX will pick that up. It can also calculate the length for you. So you've noticed that it automatically picked a bolt for me. Or you can tell it to do it all the time or just when you want it to do it. And then on this side, you can add counter bores, things like that, if you need to. So really nice tool to use and to apply your bolts and nuts. That's why I mentioned earlier that you should use this interface now. It's coming with Creo. Don't use the old Wi-Fi stuff where you still have bolts and nuts in your library. I mean, it's just not making sense anymore. Okay, so my screw's a little bit too short. I'm going to say, well, yeah, it's okay. Because I've changed the plate thickness now. So then it's picking up it's part of a pattern. So I can tell it, yes, make it part of that, or just do a single instance. In this case, because I'm working with a lot of different heights, it doesn't make sense to just pattern it. I want to say just do the single one. And then very important, the thing that I wanted to show you guys here is the cuts that it made. So we are in assembly level. And these are assembly level cuts that it made, but it did push it through to the components. So if we go open up the ring component now, well, let's do the flange, that's going to be easier. I'm going to expand it first, and you'll see this IFX ID in here. So that's an assembly level cut, but it's intersecting with the component as well. So you can turn that off if you want to. It all depends on the scenario, how you, if you need to weld components before you do the holes and things like that, then you can do that. You don't have to add it when you do the bolts and nuts. And you'll notice that that hole is there with the counter bore. Okay, so that's IFX. Then I wanted to go to the last two ones, is the flexible components. So I've created the assembly there. I just wanted to show you guys this quickly. So you see we have the clutch spring in here, and then we have the clutch spring again, but this one's shorter. And you can see the icon there. It shows that that's a flexible component now. I just quickly want to show you where you can set that up. So you can either do it from the assembly. You can say make flexible, and then you can add that information, or you can go to a component. So this might be already in there now because I've done the other component. Let's just quickly check. It's prepare model properties. Okay, so that one is what the previous one was just on assembly level. So if I want to add it to part level, this is where we'll do that. You go to change. You pick the feature that you want to. So this spring length is driven by 2 datum points. So I can just add that point in there. I can pick the dimension. So okay, and it's going to add that length in there. So now I can take this component. I can assemble it in any assembly. It's going to tell me this is a flexible component. Do you want to change something? Do you want to add the original? And the nice part about this is it's the same thing that you can change all the time without creating family tables or simplified reps or anything like that. Just a simple tool to have the same component in different states. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this one because I've already added it to the assembly level. Then the last one that I wanted to show you guys, and I'm going to use this one again. I'm going to use this. I'm going to suppress all of those, and I'm going to open up this green component. Just that's fine. I can leave my so let's say this is it's a component that you guys assemble a lot, and you want to add that interface to it. It's a library component. Let's say in this scenario, so you can go to component interface, and you can give your interface a name that's making sense to your design scenario. I'm just going to say it's a webinar again, and then automatic. So now you need to tell it what do you need to pick when you take this into an assembly. So I'm going to tell it, well, I want to take coincident and I want to use the center axis. Okay, so that's important for me. And I'm going to add a new constraint. I'm going to say, well, I want to place, I can use either parallel or any of the others, but I want to go coincident again. I'm going to say, well, use this top surface, and that should be able to place this component. You can add the whole feature to determine your orientation if you want to. So once again, you can go new. You can pick the whole if you want to, and then just say, give it a certain orientation, or be coincident with another reference that you have to pick. So all up to you. So I'm just going to delete that one. I'm happy with those two. I'm going to say okay. And you'll notice that these parts will have like a footer here in the model tree. And you will know these guys will have an interface to it, and then you can use that. So let's go and place this component in the assembly again. So I'm going to go model, assemble, and I'm going to go in session, and that was the wing part. And you will notice that it picked up that this part already had an interface in it. So it's not in my tab here, it's not on manual, it's by interface, by default. So the only things that I need to pick now is my datum axis. And I'm just going to drag that to the bottom, and then my mating surface. And there we go. So imagine you have a component where you have to pick 3, 4, 5 type of references all the time. It's frustrating, it's unnecessary. You add an interface to those components, and then you can place them a lot easier. I just want to add something. I just quickly want to go open. I just want to show you guys my basic library. So I've got a library set up. So there's my basic library with all my components and things. Like I mentioned, don't use fasteners anymore in here. Go with stuff like connectors, bearings, things that's still a library component, but outside of the IFX spectrum of working. Okay, so we are almost out of time, so I'm going to keep quiet for a while, and you guys can get some questions in. So I'm going to give you a minute or so to get those questions in if you want them answered right now. Okay, so the first question, so can you edit MapKeys? So like the mistake I did, I didn't add the 25 millimeters to that flange that I tried to make. Unfortunately, no. And the reason for that is because the map key is saved like this in the config.profile. So it's just too easy to make a mistake in there. I've seen guys edit that, but it's a nightmare. I won't recommend it. Don't go there. Rather delete the map key, test it. If it's not doing what it's supposed to do, delete and redo it. Okay, so sorry, not a quick fix there, but the most accurate one. So just delete the map key if it's not working like it should, and recreate that. Luckily, Creo isn't. You can take as much time as you want. So try to make notes of the picks that you have to follow. Even if you take 2 or 3 minutes between the picks when you record the map key, Creo doesn't matter about that or doesn't care about that. So take your time when you do those map keys. There's no time limit on that. Okay, so the next question is about IFX and does it work with Windchill? It certainly does. The only thing that you have to do is you have to take those components and those tables, and you have to put it inside of Windchill. So you will use this instance creator, and you can create the instances of the bolts and nuts that you use, and you can put that in Windchill, or you can put everything in Windchill. But you'll use the instance creator for that. So yep, you will do it like normal library parts. You just have to export it from the IFX catalogs and put that into Windchill. Yep, I'm using Creo 8 today. That's why you will see datum planes. You can see there's a little bit of a shade. That's the default shade. That's the quickest and easiest way now to identify if you're using Creo 8 or not. Then I had a question about tabs. So as soon as you add these new tabs like I've did, just remember you have to save that user interface file. So if I go to options, and as soon as I go into this ribbon, there's the export configurations. So that will create a user interface file, and that needs. Oh no, that's not the right one. Export. Here we go. This will create the user interface file, and there's a few locations Creo will use to grab that. But if it's in the same folder as your config.profile, your startup folder, then it should always be there. Yeah, then one on IFX again. Does the IFX have its own hardware models, or can it be tied to our existing hardware models? It's got its own models. It's got its own catalogs. You can change or edit the IFX catalogs, but that doesn't come with the normal Creo license. You need the full version of IFX to manipulate those catalogs or to do anything with it. So yes, you can do certain things with it, but you need the full license. So that question, if you need a little bit more information, just send me an email, and then we can do a discussion on that. Yeah, once again, IFX, it's great, but then if you need them in a bill of material, yep, then you will need to have the full license so you can change those names and add parameters and things like that if you add them to your bill of material. So one question on, can you do everything I've showed today in all the versions? You can do most of the things, MapKeys, user-defined features, the library stuff, the tabs. The only thing that you can't do in all the versions was that that transparency that I've added. That's something completely new in Creo 8. This transparency tabs, those are new. So everything I showed today, you can do in all the versions of Creo and even Pro Engineer. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a minute or two for extra questions. I think I've answered all of them. Let me double check that. Okay, yep, there's no more questions coming in. So I think I'm going to end the webinar. For the guys, okay, so I have a few guys that asked me for the pre-wildfire system color file. If there's anybody else, just drop me a mail. I'll get that to you. And then thank you for joining us today and hope to